Many, including myself, are guilty of saying creativity is dead, and while it may seem that way, it's not true at all.
It's false. No way. Not this time. We created it. No, it's totally made up. Pure fiction.
There are tons of movies, television shows, video games, and books that are created in the current year that are brilliant, well thought out, and deserve praise. The problem is they're being buried under a mountain of slop from dumb people who think that they're really, really intelligent. It's made the worse when those same dumb people cosplaying as smarty pantses get their hands on actual creative works and adapt them into a new medium. This is Marks on TV, and today we're talking about the importance of story lore and canon with some great points made by famous author George R.R. Martin. Now, let's get into it. When building a fantasy world, be it for gaming, literature, television, or film, you have to build a foundation. Upon that foundation, every piece of lore or brick needs to be carefully thought out and put into its proper place. Just like the world we actually live in, if one brick or piece of lore is shoved into the wrong area or doesn't make sense, or if an important brick or piece of lore is suddenly ripped out or changed midway through, it can cause the entire wall and then the entire structure to come crumbling down on your head. Lore and canon, despite what current-day fake nerds will try to tell you, is extremely important.
Fact.
That's why so many Star Wars fans have been up in arms about the way The Acolyte and many other Disney Star Wars properties have treated George Lucas's magnum opus. That's why many Tolkien loyalists hate The Rings of Power with a fiery, burning passion of 1,000 hells. To get into that deeper, let's go to the author of the A Song of Ice and Fire series, the mind behind Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, and world builder for the hit game Elden Ring, George R.R. Martin. This article comes courtesy of That Park Place. Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin warns creators, ignore canon, and the world you've created comes apart like tissue paper.
Yup!
Game of Thrones creator George R.R. Martin has issued a warning to Hollywood creators to respect the canon of their worlds and not try to improve on the original material. I talked a little bit about this in a previous video titled Hollywood Doesn't Respect Source Material or You. I'd suggest you check that one out.
What are you waiting for, huh?
Martin emphasizes that fantasy needs to be grounded in its own rules and mythology, and that ignoring canon can lead to that world falling apart like tissue paper.
It's true.
There's a reason that authors and genuine creators spend so much time world building. It's not just because it's a fun activity. You want your world to make sense, even fantastically. Every world needs rules that it sticks to, and it only takes a few inconsistencies for your entire world to literally come crashing down, and the immersion is broken for literally everyone.
You blew it!
Martin references various examples of dragon designs in different stories, including his own series, and notes that Smaug from J.R.R. Tolkien's The Hobbit and Toothless from the How to Train Your Dragon films should not be confused with those in his world. We'll get more into those differences in the next article we cover.
Buckle up, buckaroo!
Martin also laments that many screenwriters and producers believe that they can improve on the original material of great authors such as Ian Fleming, J.R.R. Tolkien, Jane Austen, and others. Of course, there are people who love to stand on the shoulders of giants and pretend that they're flying. They cannot create anything of any worth by themselves, so they jack the creations of others and pretend that they're doing better.
Why don't you do something with your life? Sit around here all day. You contribute nothing to society.
Sometimes, when my wife is playing a song, as a joke, I loudly sing incorrect lyrics, usually involving bathroom humor, and she'll say, "You just ruined it." To which I'll retort, "No, I'm making it better. How dare you not recognize my genius?"
I fart in your general direction.
That's pretty much what Hollywood writers enjoy doing to classic works of fiction, including the bathroom humor sometimes.
Uh-oh, poop!
Martin argues that stuff often results in a worse adaptation rather than a better one, which I just mentioned. However, he does note that occasionally a good adaptation can be made, such as FX's recent Shogun series.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Martin believes that staying faithful to the original material is important and that making changes should only be done for legitimate reasons, such as budget constraints or creative decisions. He points to things like the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones not being a 15-foot-tall monstrosity made of 10,000 swords, as described in the books.
Jesus Christ.
Because there was no studio big enough to accommodate such a throne. Plus, the sheer size would have been impractical on the small screen. Martin concludes by referencing J.R.R. Tolkien's essay on fairy stories, which emphasizes the importance of creating a believable secondary world that can transport readers into a new reality. That goes back to my earlier point about world building. Some people world build in broad strokes. Some people world build in fine lines. Both are fine, both are acceptable. The world and its rules just need to be consistent and make sense.
A big ball of wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey stuff.
If something is one way in Chapter 1, don't change it in Chapter 9 and then gaslight your readers by telling them it's always been that way.
Not a great plan.
Just because it's fantasy doesn't mean it doesn't need to be sensical. I earlier teed up the story with Martin talking about his dragons being specific and how HBO kind of ruined that. Let's turn to IGN. George R.R. Martin calls out Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon for messing up Targaryen sigil.
Oh no. Anyway, last week...
George R.R. Martin has criticized HBO's Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon for getting the Targaryen sigil wrong. He claims that the sigil, which features a dragon with 2 legs and 2 wings, was designed to be realistic and consistent with his book series. However, the show featured a dragon with 4 legs, which Martin considers an error.
You're wrong and I hate you.
Martin is particularly upset that the incorrect sigil has been used in various forms of media, including alternate book covers and even the latest episode of House of the Dragon. He believes that some people's lack of knowledge about heraldry has led to this mistake.
All right, explain this to me like I'm a 2-year-old, okay? Because there's an element to this thing I just cannot get through my thick head.
Martin is determined to correct this mistake and ensure that the correct sigil is used in future adaptations, including the upcoming spin-off series, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Cool.
Personally, as an outsider, I don't really care and never even thought of this. However, I didn't create this world. I didn't create these creatures. I didn't write the books. I didn't spend hours and days and weeks and months and years of my life writing about all of this, spending lots of time thinking this all out, crafting it, and carefully plotting out all of the intricacies of this world. So I'm way too far back on this issue.
I understand nothing.
I will say, though, that I feel his pain. I know that Ursula K. Le Guin says that when she watched the Studio Ghibli film Tales of Earthsea, which was supposed to be an adaptation of her books, she says that she didn't even recognize any of it. It was like completely different characters and places had her character and location names slapped on them.
I don't even know who you are.
The story was something she never made, and she absolutely hated it.
I hated every minute of this.
As someone who's in the process of writing multiple fantasy novels myself, if I ever was fortunate enough to have them adapted into a show or film, I'd want to be very close to it all, much like Neil Gaiman is with all of his works. I could deal with some slight deviations from details in the books, but something like this would probably annoy me too. All in all, while George occasionally says some goofy crap, like saying that he wanted Tolkien to write more about King Aragorn's tax policy when he ruled over Gondor,
What the hell is even that?
he also says some pretty solid, sensical things that I wish more people would champion when dealing with Hollywood.
I have a permit. This just says I can do what I want.
Comment with your thoughts on this. Do you care about lore and canon? Have you seen any of your favorite things get adapted into a different medium and get completely torn apart and ruined? Or, on that same wavelength, has there been somebody who took over one of your favorite series and completely torched it? On the flip side, have you had any of your favorite things get adapted into a different medium and it turned out to be great? Or someone took up the torch and actually improved upon it, or kept the quality the same? Let me know down in the comments section. As always, the links to the articles I covered can be found in the video description. Also, please share this video around to everyone you know, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the little bell to be notified every time we post brand new content. This has been Marks on TV, and we'll see you next time.